Hello, and welcome to Steel Valley Soccer Studios in Boardman. This is Pitchmen.
All right, this is the first Steel Valley Soccer podcast ever. I'm Tim Walsh. I'm here with Dan Conley. Dan, how you doing today?
I'm doing well.
And as always, Chris Platten. Chris, how you doing?
Doing very good.
And that's probably about as much talking as you're going to do today, huh?
Probably.
So why a podcast? Well, we want to talk about last year, all the good things that happened, some bad things that happened, some weird things that happened. And we could easily have done a video of this, but we all agreed that we all have faces for radio.
Speak for yourself. My mom says I'm very good looking.
And if you haven't noticed, we got some new equipment to do some funny, cool things. So, thank God we can edit this. That's all I'm saying. And so let's talk about some teams last year. Let's talk about teams as a whole. We had two teams make it to the state tournament, both on the boys' side. We had Howland and we had Cardinal Mooney, the two very good teams.
Right. I think not surprising at all. Howland's always there every year. You know, every year they graduate people. I think teams in the area start thinking maybe we're going to take that top spot as the best team in the area. Year in, year out, Howland churns it out. They always have success, regular season and playoffs.
Absolutely. And they've had it for, 2 state championship games, 1 championship win, 3 regional championships in the last 4 years. They're having a really good run right now, and it seems to be just everyone wants to go play for them, and Coach Stiles does a very good job. Mooney, on the other hand, Mooney's the most decorated program in our area.
Yeah.
They've got something like, 11 district championships?
Tradition. They were good when I played. You know, they had that state run with Kiki Willis in the early 2000s, and they have like a kinship in Mooney that a lot of programs don't really have. A lot of their old alumni come back and watch. I know some programs have that, but as a whole, everyone from Mooney who graduated and played, they know how they're doing. They always check in, and I think it's a sense of pride they have over Mooney. Like you said, the excellence they've had, the decorated state championships and stuff like that.
Yeah, and their coach, it's kind of like Matt Britton, their coach. He came in, and it was almost like gangbusters. They were a different team.
Night and day.
Nothing taken away from the coach before, but he's got a lot of results in the last couple of years. On the girls' side of things, we had some girls winning district that have never won before. West Branch gets their first, which was surprising to me that they've never won a district championship until this year.
Right. They've put some teams together, but for whatever reason, they can't put it all together when it comes time for playoffs.
Yeah. Well, one thing that doesn't help them is they're normally in the district with the other powerhouse from the girls' programs, and that's Canfield, who has their 9th district championship this past year.
Right. I think the new way the playoffs work now, I think helps out these teams so they're not just stacked against each other. Now they can go into different brackets and stuff like that. But West Branch had too much talent this year. They would have had to have a royal collapse to not make it out. They did not disappoint.
Yeah, and a lot of these teams have players, and their main players, a handful of main players, are juniors.
Yeah.
So you look at Bree Thomas, she's a junior. You look at Canfield, Macy Toporser, she's a junior.
Yeah.
So that's kind of surprising. Some other things on the girls' side, Lakeview wins their second ever, and I think they came out of nowhere a little bit. They really weren't on the radar at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, not at all. I think it's just not us. I think they probably themselves thought they had a good team, like every team does. But what really halfway through the year before everyone started noticing, hey, this team's pretty good, and we went and watched them play. I think they played Hubbard, and they took it to Hubbard. Hubbard's not a bad team either. I think that really opened up my eyes for how much talent they weren't just Busafink. Alexis was there. I think before I went and saw her, she got in my head. She was the main cog for that team. She's very good, but they have other good pieces on that team that really led to their success.
Yeah, they had a lot of speed and a lot of speed up top. And the crazy part, when we go to talk about every week, who's going to make the top 5, let's look at this team. You can't just look at their wins and losses, because a team who plays a Division III schedule will have less losses than a team that plays a Division I schedule, and the Division I team might be better. And we saw that on the boys' side with Boardman and Badger. Yes, they tied, but if you looked at their records going in, you'd be like, oh, man, Badger was supposed to kill them.
Right.
Not necessarily the case. But Lakeview, it always came up like, oh, geez, they only lost 1 game, and they played their conference is no slouch.
Right. And before we move on from them, Poland girls, we went and saw them play their first game of the year against Canfield. And to put it lightly, Canfield dog walked them that first game.
Yeah.
They took it to them, and I thought, how was anybody ever going to beat Canfield? And Poland from that first game where they ended up at, I really give Coach Huda some credit. I think they just had an off game that first game. He righted the ship, and they didn't look back after that.
No, and Poland winning their second district championship on the girls' side. So far, no girls have ever won regional in our area. So as good as some Canfield teams have been, I'm kind of racking my brain to find another team. I think Mooney had some good teams back at the late 2000s.
Yeah, Niles girls too had some teams.
Correct. But nobody ever won there. Over on the boys' side, United wins their second. That United team is good.
For real.
Yes.
A lot of times you have D3 teams that have a main player, like this team player carries them. United has about 5 of them. If you put them any other team, they're the best player out there. And Division 3, not saying it's lesser competition, but you really only need a couple good players. But United they've been playing together for a long time. I was very impressed with their ball movement. They're a team. They play as a team. They defend as a team. You can see that when they gave up that goal against JFK, because I think their goalie was going for a record when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
The goalie wasn't the only one upset. The whole team. They looked at them like they disappointed him by giving up that shot.
And you could tell they had a high soccer IQ. The parents had a pretty good high soccer IQ, but
they were vocal.
As far as games go, they were the most vocal parents. And that started in the preseason when we went to the Cardinal Classic.
Mm-hmm.
And we were watching one of their games and they were riding the referee pretty good. So United win. Poland boys won for the third time. Not since 2000, though.
Right.
Nope, that's wrong. Not since 2014. So they won in 2000, 2014, and now. So is that right, Chris?
That's correct,
Tim. I'm sorry, man. I had to.
Just something I was looking at. All these teams we're talking about, most successful teams in our area, these 4 teams for boys and girls, they all gave up right around 20 goals or less all year.
Yeah.
They say defense wins championships. Obviously it does. But all these teams here, I think only one team that was Poland, they let in 21 goals. Maybe I have that wrong, but they were all 20 or under, and no other team could say that. And there's a reason why those teams have always been successful. It's defense first.
And I know you and I, both former head coaches,
Mm-hmm.
we both have a philosophy that is vastly different from each other.
Right.
I'm very offensive minded. In my mind, if you can score goals, you're always going to be in every game.
Mm-hmm.
My thought is always that, if you're defense heavy and you get scored on and you can't really score goals, you really are struggling there.
Right.
But the stats don't lie.
Right.
Your view of things are like, hey, if you never get scored on, you're never going to lose a game.
Right.
So it's interesting to see how that pans out for them.
Come time in the playoffs, most teams bunker back and try to counterattack if they think they're outmatched.
Yeah.
The outmatched team never tries to outscore you 5-4. They try to win a close 1-0 game.
Yeah. It gets a lot tighter to score goals in the playoffs. Speaking of which, is there any teams that surprised you this year with their success? We'll go there first.
Absolutely. I think first one that comes to mind on the boys' side is Canfield.
Mm-hmm.
They graduated almost everyone and their grandmothers last year. And, everyone was expecting them to not have a bad year, but have a rebuilding year. And they're one of those teams. They only let in, I think, 17 goals all year. I looked at that. They surprised me. They didn't just win games. They dominated a lot of games.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, they only had 2 returning starters.
Yeah.
Was that Colin Molichak? Or is that Ethan Molichak? I get the 2 confused.
Ethan and Ben Kovac.
Yeah, well, in the goalie. I'm sorry. So 3.
Yeah.
But, man, did they come through. Coach Mike Bailey in his first year.
Phenomenal job.
Yeah, I think he's one of the top coaches in our area by far. He's been at the state level when he was at South Range, and now here, bringing them up to where he had them this year. That's one.
When he was at South Range, a lot of times, it's D3. You can have success there, but I think he shut all those doubters up. He also has to have the players, but he had them all playing together on the same page with what they're doing.
Especially in your first year. A lot of times your first year is a little bit rough. You're getting used to everything. Just the paperwork side of things is tough your first year until you get a hang of it.
Right.
One for me that surprised me, and I thought they had so much talent last year, was Crestview boys.
Mm-hmm.
They graduated a lot of people. They graduated a lot of talent, a lot of their scoring. Yeah, Nick Novak is a special talent, but I thought that they were going to come out and teams were going to, because they upped their schedule, their difficulty of schedule. But when it came down to it, they had a really nice season.
They did. I think Novak had a different role this year. Last year, I think the only thing he tried doing was offensive, score a goal. This year, he played more. He still scored a lot of goals.
Yes.
But he played more of a playmaker role on top of that, and he hustled. That's one thing I like to see. The best players, do they outwork or are they naturally talented? Mm-hmm. He's naturally talented, and he works hard when he's out there as well.
Yeah, well, we went to the champion game. boy, did he have a game.
Right.
He did just about everything. Then they put him back at almost like a stopper
Yep.
position and kept the other team from scoring because that champion team was not that bad.
Right.
And it was what, like a 5-1 or 6-1.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been even worse. All right, is there any teams that you saw on the girls' side that were a little bit surprising? Girls' side's a little bit more difficult for us. We haven't coached that in the past, so it's new. But anyone that comes to mind?
It comes to mind. Surprising. Everyone's waiting for Canfield to have an off year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they said they graduated players last year. They have a plethora of talent, and so it wasn't surprising they were good again. I'd say Howland. They they really impressed from beginning to the end of the year. They play a very tough schedule. There's no easy games in there. They held their own, and they got some good players out there. I was really impressed with the Howland girls side.
Coach Greg Mitchell
Mm-hmm.
has them going pretty well. They play a very good style, and they're Division I, and they took on a couple teams from outside of the area that you're looking at like, this is going to be a tough one for them, and they pulled out a 1-0, a 2-1 win. They are a young team as well,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're just going to get better. Canfield, for me, was the one that I thought was going to be down.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, they graduated a lot of people. I talked to a couple coaches in the area, and they said, yeah, they might not be the Canfield that you think of this year. And that might be coming from a lot of their talent being in the junior class.
Right.
But Addie Masters had a pretty good year.
Right.
Obviously, Macy Taporser, Hannah Wahib, Vivian Nora, they all had a really good season.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities between that team and the Howland team that won state championship for the boys' side. They have a lot of center mids out there,
Mm-hmm.
and they're plugging them in different areas, and they're successful at doing that. They may not, Macy scores a lot of goals, but I know she naturally plays attacking, but not striker.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of plug everyone in. I think everyone has the same idea. The system that Coach Simeone runs it's tried and true. There's a reason they always have success. Hubbard boys too.
Yeah,
I think they came out of nowhere. They have a couple of talented freshmen that came in. They had their first game of the year against Howland where they gave them a tough game and they lost 3-2. But that was kind of like that. I know that score sent shockwaves through the community of soccer coaches. And everyone was probably thinking an easy 6-7-0 win.
yeah.
And it wasn't just a close game. They were in it the whole entire time.
Howland had to battle a little bit just to get to that last goal.
And they fight. They play hard defensively and offensively. They battle out there. Hubbard does.
But Howland had difficulty beating them, and that put Hubbard on the map for the boys' side. Were there any upsets to where you watched a game and you're like, I can't believe they won? Because we had an upset alert 2 years ago. This upcoming year, we really didn't have that graphic put out there.
I would say at the time it happened, in my mind it was an upset, but it turned out not to be an upset, and that was when Mooney beat Howland on the boys' side. We were there covering that. I thought it was going to be a good game, but I thought Howland was going to win for sure. And the first half, Mooney took it to Howland. They took it to him. They should have put more than one goal up on the board. They scored off that one corner kick. Second half, I know Howland came out better, but everyone kept waiting for Howland to make that run and get back in the game. But Mooney kept them out. They kept them out of the back of the net. And when that happened, I was thinking, boy, that was a huge upset. Turned out it wasn't.
No.
They were that good.
They were the best boys team in the area.
They were. They
followed closely by Howland.
Yeah.
But the crazy part about that is that was probably the game of the year that had most viewers of any of our live streams. Looking at that goal, because I just did the top 10 goals, which will be coming out soon. That Dante DiGenova was wide open. There wasn't anyone within 10 feet of him on a corner kick.
Yeah.
And they had almost everybody back. So it was just a mental breakdown, and that's all it takes.
One
little mental breakdown.
game of inches.
Yeah.
And he scored many goals from some set pieces. He was a target.
He's a tall guy.
He is.
Other upsets. There's none that I could really put my finger on and be like, God, that is just so unexpected. Yeah, I guess I got none. As I'm looking through here, Chris, do you have anything that comes to mind?
No.
Always a man of many words.
I would say for me, the girls' side. I know we talked about both these teams, but when West Branch beat Canfield early on in the year, obviously they're two of the best teams in the area.
Mm-hmm.
They beat them 4-1.
Yeah,
and that wasn't just they slightly beat them; they took it to them. That score line itself was very surprising to me, especially when we just got done watching Canfield, shellac pulling that first time. I was thinking in my head, there's no way anybody's even going to touch Canfield.
Yeah.
And then 2 games later, they got beat.
Do you remember I asked Coach Simone, I said, some people call this a rebuilding year.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of looked at me funny. So he knew.
Yeah.
I think he knew way better than I do.
Yeah. Actually, I think he may have said that in the beginning.
Yes. Let's talk about some players. let's talk about some players that jumped out at you. I'm going to start first because this is a kid who we had an influx of really good goalies this year.
Yeah.
We got Carson Essed going to Marshall, who
Mhm.
just won a national championship a couple years ago, Division One. Jamie Sorrells had a really nice year for Austintown Fitch. But Michael Daly
Yeah.
for Poland. Holy crap.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, and in the All-Star game, the Steel Valley Soccer All-Star game, him in his pajama pants. That was interesting.
It was.
But he came out and he did really, like, some of these saves we're watching, like, look at this kid. And we're sitting next to a couple college coaches that are like, hey, what's that kid's name
Yeah.
again?
Poland during the regular season, they don't give up a whole lot of goals, a whole lot of shots. So he had good stats out there. But when he came for that All-Star game, they were getting shots. It was mostly all offense, both sides.
Yeah.
He was making some darn good saves. Like you said, you watched it and you're thinking, where'd you come from? How are you that athletic?
And he's only a sophomore.
He's only a sophomore. So he's, while Sorrells and Essed got most of the talking this past year and 2 years, he's been in the background saying, what about me? And, next year, he is the cream of the crop going into next year.
Yeah.
For goals.
If we had a preseason All-American watch or preseason Steel Valley soccer watch, he'd definitely be on it. I did mention Carson Essed already, and we have some people who are going to college. So I want to mention them. We have Macy Toporsu, who has committed to Purdue Fort Wayne. Carson Essed again to Marshall. Ariana Daniels from Poland, she's going to Slippery Rock. Gabby Lamparty. Now, she's an interesting case because she didn't play this year because of, I believe she played for an academy or possibly a club, and she has committed to West Virginia, another Division I. And Jamie Sorrells to Tiffin University. Now, we just talked earlier, Noah Huda, and do you remember where he went? Mercyhurst.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people. I think we should compile a list of area players that are currently playing in college.
There's a lot of them.
Because there are quite a many. Quite a many.
That's a lot.
Yes. I'm going to stick to that. Some of the surprise players that I feel like came out of nowhere as well is Antonio D'Ambrosi.
Yeah.
From Girard. Now, I went to that game and I watched it live, and boy, did he have more speed than anybody else by far on the field against Hubbard.
Yeah, he's athletic. Like you said, speed. And he's got recovery speed, too. Girard's not a typical soccer haven. Mm-hmm. So when you show a little bit more talent, that kind of you notice it more, I should say.
Yes.
And he stood out. He was like a man amongst boys out there.
Absolutely. And it's just, he super athletic, did a really nice job. Some other people came in. Vinny Majorca from Hubbard, good defender. Some people who really stood out. I know Maria Facillo came out of nowhere for the Ursuline girls team. She was scoring goals left and right. She was at the top of the leaderboards for about a month there before some other teams started to catch up with a lot of their goals.
You get Brianna Bash and Niles.
Oh, yeah.
We saw her play. She was hit the ball to Brianna and watch her do her thing.
Yeah.
She was asked to do a lot by her team, and she delivered.
Yeah. It's speed, under control, able to place the ball. I think she had a hat trick that game.
Right.
Some other people, Riley Hutton.
Yeah.
Who's had all types of scoring.
A career. She scored almost a career worth of goals every year she's played.
That's correct. She's a junior.
Yeah.
Bree Thomas, who's District Player of the Year in Division II, which was a little bit surprising because there's so many talented people, but she's good.
Yeah. Even if you look at our second team, all second team, you have Taylor Kuhn over there, Alexis Busafink, Ava Blinksy. There's so many. Kerrigan Miller, Bailey Baker. There's so much talent on the girls side. Not that there's not on the boys side, but it was very hard to narrow down a top 11 on the girls side because a lot of them to me were ties because they were so good.
Yeah, I think that was the toughest thing to do as what we've done.
Mm-hmm.
Is a top five. Yeah, teams are teams. No one's going to get too offended, but trying to pick who the best player individually was, because each has their own set of like, well, maybe they're not playing in the position they're normally playing in. Maybe they, there's something else going on. They're doing whatever it is to help the team, and it's not necessarily helping them.
Right.
The players around them, the schedule they play. The tough part about doing this, there's so much talent typically on teams.
Right.
So you get a Howland team or a Mooney team, and there's 3 or 4 guys.
Right.
And maybe their 5th guy is better than the best guy on another team, but it's hard to have 5 players from one team in a list of supposed to be for the area. So you have Vasily, is it Gentis or Hentis? Hentis.
Yeah.
That's going to mess me up. Caleb Rose, Jack Kenny, they had a really nice team. Those are some good players.
Yeah.
Mooney, Alex LaPlante, Nick Pregabon, Dante DiGenova. There's another one. There's another one from Mooney that I'm missing.
You put me on a spot. Because there was somebody that had All-State we did not have on our list.
And you're like, man, that kid was
That's
really
on us
good.
too. Sometimes they have so much talent, it's hard to see especially when you only see 1 or 2 games a year. Maybe they had an off game when we saw them, so we didn't stand out. But yeah, you're right. They have like Noah Huda, Mr. Oa, everything. You can tell when a player warms up, how they strike a ball, how they move. As soon as the game starts, you could tell how good of a player he is on the ball.
Yeah.
He may be a smaller in stature, but he doesn't play like it.
No, he plays
very strong.
Plays like he's 6'6".
Yeah.
Some other things, some of the teams that we don't really get to see a lot, they're a little bit farther out. Like on the girls' side, Kara English.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in the Youngstown district, but she's leading the state in goals, both boys and girls. So we had to have her in our All-Star game. But no, there's a lot of players. There's a lot of people. Maddox Andrea is going to be probably a stud for the next couple years. He's only a sophomore.
Right.
That's if he doesn't go the Gabby Lamparty way and decide not to play high school because he's got higher aspirations.
Right.
But this last part, we're going to talk about what we do as Steel Valley. We're all former coaches, high school coaches, and we wanted to see a little more coverage in our area. Like when Howland went to the first state championship in, 2020?
Yeah.
We looked in the paper, nothing about them other than like what time they played. Yet other sports get like, it's the first round. It was a 56-7 game. They've got videos, they've got interviews, they've got pictures, they've got a front and back page spread.
Right.
And it's not just the paper, it's everywhere. Because soccer's a tough thing to cover because it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. So we thought about it, we talked about it and said, why don't we do this? Why don't we go to games, look at the players, evaluate the talent, pick a top 5, talk about players and what they're doing well, any type of milestone win or goal scored, we do something. And this is what we do. And the hardest part is to try to pick who is standing out from the others.
I used to play AJSO back in the day. They used to put our Austintown Junior Soccer, they used to put our scores in the paper, Town Crier. I used to love Saturday morning seeing my name in there back when I was like the best player out there. But that was cool. And I know even though we don't always get it right, everything we do is with the best foot forward, all with great intentions in mind. I know the players love seeing their names. They love seeing the coverage. They love seeing their team talked about. I'm sure they all, and we wish we could talk about every team, but we just don't have enough eyes out there. Some coaches don't really help us out with getting stuff to us as well. But I think it's a good thing. I think the more we talk, the more our name gets out, the more players notice us, the more parents notice us, more coaches will inevitably help us as well.
Yeah, and that's anyone listening, if you want to see your name more, have your coaches put their stuff on OSSCA, email us, text us. I know that during the season, every day there's at least 4 or 5 coaches texting all of us. So we want to get this information out there. It's tough to pick people. We don't have any type of income for us. We're doing this volunteer right now for our nonprofit right now. And we are looking for as much help information-wise about these teams as we can get.
Yeah, help us help you.
Yeah. Well said.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go to Chris to see what he has to say. Please let me leave that in there. So, going into next year, we are still going to live stream a girls' game and a boys' game of the week each and every week. We're still going to do our top 5. We're still going to have our, hopefully, nightly scoreboard up of who's winning what games as we can get them in. All-Star game. Basically, everything we did in 2022, we're going to try to continue.
Plus an ounce better every time.
Yeah, if we could. I know that the sound was terrible because you can hear every cough I make,
every breath
question.
I took.
Yes. Every paper that got wrinkled.
Yeah, sorry.
But the thing that we want to add in there is we want to have a college ID camp.
Yeah.
Have between 4 to 10 college coaches come in and evaluate our talent, get their literature out, and have it be a win-win for everybody. So we have that in the
works.
In the works.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Wah, wah. And so, in closing, we are going to try to have one of these episodes once a month at least, 2 if we're feeling great about it. And we are going to try to keep the area soccer at the edge of everyone's mind. We're going to start calling coaches and doing interviews and sending it out there, possibly even players. So thank you for listening. Dan, is there anything else that we need to add in at the end here?
I don't think so. I had a good time.
Nope. Chris, anything else?
No.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Man of many words. And in that, we are done.
Thank you for listening to Pitchmen, a Steel Valley Soccer podcast.